Um, Not a lot of articles today. We will directly start with the background of this article, understanding Russia's Taliban gauntlet. See, I don't want you to take any uh, notes or any homework today, because I don't think any of these articles will be relevant for next year's exam or anything. So only one, the last GLOF event. That is the only article which can be used for our final exam. But rest of the articles are very less significant. So let's just briefly skim through the newspaper today and close this. Understanding Russia's Taliban gauntlet. What is this about? See, if you go back to the 70s, and if you want to take a look at what happened in 70s and even before that, if you see the Afghan history, Afghanistan is called the graveyard of empires, because no matter which foreign power tried to intrude into that country and tried to control them, they were just unsuccessful. And if you take a look at Afghanistan's strategic location, it is like a gateway that connects the west to the east. And it's such an important geographical location that controlling that area will give you access to both the sides. So Afghanistan is called a buffer state historically, and because of this reason, both Russia as well as US wanted to control this region. Both of them were unsuccessful previously. In 1970s and 80s, Afghanistan retaliated Russian attempt to intrude into their space, and Taliban was one of the major forces back then. Okay, so after that, you know what happened, the 9/11 attacks and the entry of US. For 20 years they were there in US, tried to control them, nothing really worked out. And even if you take a look at our modern history textbooks, if you look at the history of Afghanistan rulers, Dost Muhammad, etc., you will see that none of them, like even the foreign powers, British or any other power which tried to control that region, were just unsuccessful. All they tried to do was maintain healthy relations with the local rulers. And this is what exactly Russia decided to do now. Okay. Recently, on July 3rd, 2025, the Foreign Ministry of Russia announced the recognition of Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, which means the very organization they fought against, the Taliban, they are now officially engaging with Taliban, primarily because they know they don't have an option. After the power vacuum that was created when US left Afghanistan, Taliban came into power. Now here is a conflict. Should we engage with Taliban or not? Because Taliban is officially treated as a terrorist organization by Afghanistan. But the fact is, domestically, they are controlling the power. If you want to engage with Afghanistan, you have no other option but to engage with Taliban. Right? It is this conflict that entire world is facing, including India. Now, should we engage with Taliban or not? Is a question that even India has. Same question even Russia had. The recent declaration shows that Afghanistan is an important situation for important geographical location for both US as well as Russia. Why? One, it is buffer state. Two, it has nearly 300 to 500 million worth critical minerals and some other wealth as well. Buffer means it is like let's say it is sandwiched between two regions. So if you control this region, you can keep this safe. Consider it like a gateway. It's like anyone who tried to station their troops there wanted to act like a watchman to ensure that the states to the right are safe. Okay. Now anyway, coming back, the economic reasons, the strategic reasons, and even the political ideological reasons, all this combinedly forced Russia to engage with Taliban. What is the political ideology here? In a multipolar world, you need to recognize that there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies. So just because in 1970s and 80s Russia did not gel well with Taliban doesn't mean that they shouldn't engage. Now, the reason why they are doing this is primarily the anti-US stance they have. China is invested in this region through their Belt and Road initiatives and other initiatives. They are closely engaging with Taliban. Now Russia wants to join China and engage with Afghanistan so that they can block the ideological impact of the West, primarily driven by US. Okay. What are the lessons for India? This is the next part that we need to focus on. Just like Russia, even we will be facing that dilemma. Something that we can learn from Russia is that just like how we are not recognizing Taliban as a non-terrorist organization, we still think that they are a terrorist organization. Russia also looks at it like a terrorist organization only, but takes the route of pragmatic rapprochement. This is the key word. That's the reason. Correct. So we have to stay unemotional. Even sometimes, even if you think they are terrorists, if they control power, we will have to negotiate and we will have to have a dialogue with them. Why? If India has to look at the reasons why we have to engage with Taliban, we have economic investments. Okay. Economic investments in that region, and we have a lot of you know infrastructure projects. We invested in rebuilding Afghanistan from 2000s. So all that investments will be at risk. The soft power diplomacy we have gained with Afghanistan will be at risk if we don't engage. Also, if you look at it, it is right beside the Chabahar port. If India has to access the Central Asian region through this Chabahar port, access to Afghanistan will become very important. And it is because of these reasons that India-Afghanistan relations should be cemented through a dialogue and negotiation, even if it means that we are supposed to deal with Taliban. Not necessarily. We can't exactly predict the trajectory of the conversations that we will have, but what we can definitely ensure is the dialogue remains intact. We will have our disagreements. It doesn't mean that we agree to everything that they ask for and they agree to everything that we need. It is that the channels for official communication through the ministries, etc., they are open. If the diplomatic relations are closed, it means that there are there are no official communication channels only. We will not know what is happening. Okay, that is the point. Now, clearing the air on citizenship. We are discussing this from many days. Nothing new. How do we get citizenship recognition? This is a question time and again we have been discussing. the absence of those documents and the problems that migrants are facing makes us have a relook at the whole idea of citizenship. The other day I gave you a homework for Citizenship Act in Lakshmikant from Article 5 to 11. I hope you did this. Okay, in this entire article, this paragraph is important. Therefore, if question 1 has to prove the satisfaction of authority that he is a citizen and he satisfies the provisions of the Citizenship Act 1955. Section 7A of the Act provides for registration of overseas citizens. 7B2 of the said Act clearly provides that an overseas citizen of India cardholder shall not be entitled to the rights conferred on the citizenship of India with regard to the registration of a voter. So please use these points for your prelims. If the examiner wants to confuse you to see how a citizenship holder in India, what are the rights available to him as per our RPA, and what are the rights available to a overseas citizen. If there is a comparison sort of a thing, examiner can confuse you with these provisions. So please note that. Another judgment that is there, Yogesh Bharadwaj versus State of UP. This is important for mains, which dealt with admission in a medical college. In the said judgment, it has been observed in paragraph 20 that it is only lawful residents that can be taken into account, and if a man stays in a country in breach of immigration laws, his presence there does not constitute ordinary residence. So, residence has been taken as a premise for giving citizenship. Now, which brings us to the question. There are so many judgments which say that overseas citizens cannot register themselves as voter if they are not residing in that place. Can we take that as a precedent for dealing with poor migrants who left that place but they are still within this country? No, right? So there needs to be an amendment about the procedure. So I'm talking about a comparison. I'm not giving a background because multiple days we have discussed this. The background here is that the special intensive revision of Bihar to have a relook at the voters, whether they are legal or not. Almost 70 lakh people, 60 to 70 lakh people are officially excluded as of now in the draft revision. And majority of them do not have documents primarily because they are migrants and they are away from home. So, is it right to compare migrants who do not have their official residence, their residence at that point of time, at that point of voting, because they left that state for work? Is it right to compare them with overseas citizens? This is a question that you need to ask. Here, at prelims level, these are the provisions that you need to look at so that you don't get confused. Okay. So, if the examiner wants to compare the ability to register as a voter, what are the legal provisions? Citizenship Act and Representation of People Act. These two should not confuse you. There should be some clarity in your concepts. Under what conditions will be a person allowed to register as a voter? In the case of overseas citizens, it is the Citizenship Act that gives some clarity. Okay? Please note this point, read this paragraph carefully. Now, states for the stateless. What is the concept of statehood? We know when a state is officially recognized by the UN, we are giving a legitimacy to the sovereign power of that country. If France is allowing that official statehood status to Palestine, it means that it will also put pressure on other countries to recognize Palestine as an official state. There are recent reports in Gaza that children are having starvation deaths, and it is a humanitarian crisis which should not be encouraged. malnourishment in kids is reaching a level where it is irreversibly damaging their physiology. Even if you give them food now, it will cause irreversible damage, and that is very objectionable. So, citing this humanitarian and moral grounds, France thought that it is time that we put an end to this two-state problem, and they said that we want to officially recognize Palestine. This will put pressure on other Western states as well, and it is interesting to see how the whole issue of Israel and Palestine will now shape up in an international rhetoric. What will be the stance of India, etc. Even India is vehemently opposing this starvation deaths and calls for an intervention in Palestine. India is not ambiguous here. India is not disengaging here. We were very vocal about this aspect. War cannot be a reason for innocent children to be, starving to death. Okay? These are the points that you need to take away. Sorry? I didn't get your question. France as of now. Okay. That the need for a doctor-led innovation. See, now this article is related to GS2 health. I'll give you the framework here. There's nothing new. When you're looking at the development of, this is an overlap of GS3 science and technology plus GS2 health. And if you want to leverage, if the technology is to penetrate into the masses, the most important connection between these two sectors is the doctor. No other person would know the problem of the industry better than a doctor. And in a world where digital technologies are penetrating so quickly, if the direction of innovation and the decisions on where to spend our money is to be taken, this article says that we have to take into confidence the understanding given by doctors, the inputs given by doctors to shape our R&D and our investment trajectory. Why? Because if you see, there are many protocols as per legal norms. R&D issues are different and the issues faced by doctors are different. At the ground level, there are so many protocols, so many rules and regulations which scientists and innovators do not consider while putting their money. And after the end product is out, the usual problem is that nothing valuable is generated out of it because it is not deployed because of regulatory issues. What if the limitations of protocols are already understood by innovators? It would it would bring more pragmatic solutions, and that is what this article is talking about. Yet, doctors face a lot of troubles in our country, and there is a severe shortage of the healthcare professionals. This is all we already know. So, the most important thing here is engineers and entrepreneurs are increasingly shaping the future of healthcare. Doctors are largely confined to their roles as service providers rather than creator of new medical solutions. This needs to change. So there is a need for a collaboration between the doctors and the innovators, engineers and entrepreneurs, which will bring better pragmatic solutions. And you need to read this article, this paragraph. Okay? Take the example of how COVID led to a vacuum in healthcare. The recognition of a vacuum in healthcare, it was there even before COVID. It became very obvious in COVID. Now is the time to use that opportunity and collaborate with doctors and go forward, create a new solution. This glacial lake outburst floods. See, you will see that there is National Remote Sensing Center. Okay, in Indian, Indian Himalayan region, it is a place where there are so many river basins, and as many as number is given here, some 25 to 28,000 glacial lakes. What do you mean by glacial lakes? These are the lakes which are contained within glaciers and are melted water of those glaciers. If something happens and if that is broken, it will immediately flood the downward slope areas. So it is important to preserve the ecological sanctity of these glacial lakes. Okay. So what steps should we take by conserving the biodiversity? See, for example, there are many events given here, especially the fact that most of these glacial lakes are in the boundary regions, transboundary lakes, meaning even foreign countries like, say for example, Bhutan, Nepal, Tibet, they should be coordinating with India to protect the lakes. Otherwise, what will happen? The villages in India, especially in the Himalayan states like Himachal Pradesh, will be affected very badly. So that is what this article is talking about. Many examples are given. So if you are looking at the climate change, impact of climate change, many lakes are at risk. The vulnerability of immediate geography is critical to determining the exact nature of risk. So in this region, many hydropower projects are also constructed, and that is also one reason which is disturbing the ecological sanctity. Another reason is this area has high seismic activities, earthquakes. If small earthquake happens, what will happen? So there is a need to first begin with zonation maps. You have to classify the amount of risk a particular lake has. By mapping them, you will be able to plan better. That is step number one. And how can India reduce the risk? Firstly, there is a initially, how was India planning? This is related to disaster management. Most of our activities through NDMA, we were just focusing on post-disaster. Meaning, we were just focusing on providing relief after the disaster happens. Nothing much was happening on preventing the disaster in the first place. Okay, so here there is a talk about the Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction. This national coordination effort brought together related scientific agencies, academic and research institutions, and states and union territories to study, monitor, warn, mitigate GLO4 risk. As a result, the national government finalized its first national program prioritizing 56 at risk glacial lakes. Okay. See, what we're trying to do is a multi-stakeholder engagement. I know you can't see, that's the reason I'm reading it out. This is very important for you to observe, otherwise you might ignore. This concept of multi-stakeholder, approach, meaning a single event will have responsibility from many stakeholders to achieve the end objective. What is the end objective here? To protect the lake. And it is not possible without the intervention of local people, scientists, different governments, state governments, hydropower project owners. Everybody should do their bit, and there needs to be one agency which is coordinating all these efforts. Since this is about disaster management, NDMA-led institutions or NDMA-led research bodies should take the lead. And government should give 3F. What is that? Funds, functions, that is the legal power, and the skilled people, functionaries, to achieve the end objective of functionality. What is the functionality here? Disaster management. We should avert glacial lake outburst floods. Now, this article also talks about the present status. How much did we achieve? Not much. There is a lot much to be achieved. There are some technical terms here. It is not important to get into the depth of those technologies because the takeaway is very low. Just focus on the institutional efforts, this multi-stakeholder approach that is given here, and note down 1 or 2 examples in your answers. So you have to use this article from a disaster management standpoint, and the examples given here of the recent glacial lake outburst floods and the paragraph that is given here, the efforts taken to avert it, and what is the present status. This is the method in which you have to look at this. Ignore the very finer details of science that goes behind this conservation. Okay, that's it for the day. We'll meet again tomorrow. The classes are at 7:45. If they are not informing you, I'm telling you again. Even for the online folks, we are moving to evening classes from August 1st, and for the remaining days in July, the classes will begin at 7:45. If there is any confusion regarding this, please be very clear. It begins at 7:45 and will most likely end by 8:15. Okay. Again, I'm reiterating that the classes will end in July in the morning session and will be completely shifted to the evening session from August 1st. And if you are coming to the offline center, additionally, apart from the news analysis, there will be some prelims and mains extensive efforts also. The program is going to slightly change in the offline mode. So anyone who is coming to the offline mode, I think there is some logistic issue for not providing it online. So it is only confined to the folks who are coming in offline, open to everyone in Hyderabad. Okay, see you.